high school. There was a piece of software that is ancient now called Cakewalk. Yes, some people familiar with Cakewalk. And the person who introduced me to it is a name you might be familiar with. It's my friend Andrew Underberg. So Andrew and I were in high school together. He's 2 years older than me, and we were actually paired together as a big brother, little brother, sort of mentor-mentee pair. And at the time, he was just discovering this software, Cakewalk, and he was showing me all about it, and I was just blown away because I was like, oh, I can make music and it will feel like video games. This is the greatest day of my life. And that's the thing that really got me started. It was more composing than it was songwriting at the time.
So, the Broadway style of songs in Hazbin Hotel, did you train for that? Did you rehearse for that? How do you get into that style?
I mean, by being an insufferable theater kid. Got a few of you here? Yeah. I mean, that was really the training that I had was, the two things that I would go to sleep listening to basically every day were either show tune soundtracks or comedy albums. And I feel like that is so formative to where I ended up.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's a musical that you grew up with that you love?
Okay, I put everyone on this musical because not enough people know it. There's a musical called Bat Boy the Musical. Couple fans here, that's wild. It never made it to Broadway. It was an off-Broadway musical. It toured for a minute. It was on the West End in London. I really recommend the off-Broadway original soundtrack recording. It's fantastic. It was written by Lawrence O'Keefe and a guy who some gaming fans here might know, Keith Farley, who's a voice actor who's Thane Krios in the Mass Effect series. Keith was one of the writers of Bat Boy the Musical. Yes, and Bat Boy is about there was a newspaper is a flexible term, called the Weekly World News that would have just silly articles of made up nonsense. And one of their things was a half bat, half human child in Appalachia that they called the Bat Boy. And they ran a million stories about the Bat Boy. They did a plot line where he runs for president. It was a whole thing. But there's this musical about him, which is kind of about tolerance in Heartland America. It's kind of about a domineering father and the effects of domestic violence in the home. It has this real sincere core, but the actual content of it is ridiculous and quite funny. And I think it has so much in common with Hazbin Hotel in that regard that I always recommend it to people who are fans of the show.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned you're a theater kid.
Very much.
There are some pretty amazing theater professionals in Hazbin Hotel. I want to know how excited you were when you found out you were working with Daphne Rubin Vega.
Oh my God. It's also, Daphne, the two voices in this show, Daphne and Keith, are truly two of the most unmistakable voices in theater. Nobody on earth sounds like Daphne Rubin Vega, nobody on earth sounds like Keith David. And to that end, once you know it's them, you have to write for that voice very specifically. So I was thrilled. I had actually met Daphne once before. I was a volunteer. Here's a real theater kid thing. I grew up in New York, and I volunteered for an event called the 24-Hour Plays Festival, which is a nonprofit event held in New York where they get a lot of incredible playwrights and a lot of incredible actors, and they lock them in a hotel with volunteers like me for 24 hours, and at the end of it, they put on a benefit that raises a bunch of money for charity. And Daphne had done that a couple times, so I met her a couple times, and I knew that she was a gas. And I was so excited to be able to now meet her on these terms, kind of as a peer rather than just someone who's like, wow, I really like your shows, And that was so exciting.
Now, you say that you have to write for the voice. I don't know how to ask this directly, but how do you do that? How do you listen to that voice, that unique voice, and write a song for that voice?
So there are a couple things that we employ when it comes to writing for a voice. Thing number one is we try to consume as much of their singing as possible. And then we don't just listen to it, we also plot it out. We will find the lowest note that feels really comfortable with a certain kind of delivery that we're looking for in the song we're writing. And we will mark that on a keyboard. We will listen for the highest note that has the delivery that we're looking for the song, and mark that on a keyboard. And we will look at that and we will be like, that's our range, that is our working area that we can create melodies within. That is a big part of it. And then another part of it is, this is a little technical, but like vowel phonation, you know, the way they pronounce certain vowels or certain consonants will affect what sounds like it rhymes nicely and what doesn't.
That's fascinating. Now, in songwriting lyrically, are you writing lyrics? Is Andrew writing lyrics? Are you sharing lyrics? Is Vivian involved? How does that work?
We're really sharing, Andrew and I are really sharing every part of the process. I know a lot of music duos where one person's more music, one person's more lyrics. That's how it is with The Living Tombstone, in fact, where like Yoav is a prodigious composer and producer, and he does the bulk of the musical work, and I do the bulk of the like lyrical songy stuff. And that has been a lot of my experience with songwriting as a duo. And coming into it with Andrew, it's like really shockingly egalitarian. Because part of it is we don't have a lot of time. And that forces us to do more than we might otherwise do. So I think I normally tend to default to having a very lyrical focus. I didn't go to school for music, I went to school to be a playwright. So I think of myself like very much as a storyteller using music. So that tends to be my focus, but there will be songs that like just from our schedule, it's like if you have an idea, you gotta put it down. You can't wait and be like, hey Andrew, what do you think about this? Or him going, oh hey Sam, I had this idea. It just goes in. And part of that is Andrew and I work remotely. Andrew lives in New York, I live in Los Angeles. And so a lot of it is the time difference where, Andrew will go to sleep and I'll be up and I'll have an idea and I'll put it in a file, and he'll wake up and he'll look at it and he'll go, oh cool, and add on to it. And then I'll wake up and I'll open the file and I'll go, oh neat, there's this. There's a lot of trade-off in that way, and so we all take every role. A good example of this in the season 1 soundtrack was Respectless. Andrew, yay!
Yay!
That was an example of a song where Andrew, I remember opening up he said, oh, I started something for this Velvet song we're doing. And I opened it up, and I honestly, like 60% of Respectless was in there. He just had this like burst of inspiration and like so captured Velvet's voice right off the bat. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, how do we finish this? How do we grow it? How do we produce this out in a way? And then Vivian gets involved once there's a demo. It's, she's involved in the brief at the top, but then once there's a demo, then she gives notes. She might say, oh, this character wouldn't say this like that, or this implies something about a character that isn't necessarily true. There's a lot of like story editing when it comes to the lyrics, and sometimes it's stylistic because Viv is so music-brained in spite of the fact that she's not a musician or songwriter. So she will be like, oh, actually, I think Pentius's vibe is more this way than that way. And that also does happen sometimes, but I would say predominantly it's about staying true to her story, and that's most of the notes we get.
What's your favorite lyric, knowing this is not an 18+ room, sorry?
Okay, in all of the Hellaverse, there are so many that I really appreciate, which is a little gross because it feels like patting myself on the back.
You deserve it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. One of my favorite lyrics is I'm going to use a little bit of coarse language. There's a song the first song Andrew and I co-wrote together is a song called Clown Bitch from Helluva. And there's a lyric in that song which is very simple, and I just feel like communicates the entire song in one phrase, which is money can't buy happiness, but it can rent you paradise. Yeah. Which I've seen someone tattoo that on themselves. It's so cool. But that, in terms of a song that is all about the commodification of desire, I love this idea that, like, yes, it's not happiness, but it's good feelings, and give me your money so I can give them to you.
Love that. There's a lot of people at this Q&A mic.
There sure
you guys are out of my vision range, and I turned over. I was like, wow. So I feel like this is really for you guys. So I don't need to dominate this kind of mic. So I want to maybe we'll go back and forth. So let's just throw it to an audience question. I would love to hear it. Knowing it's not an 18+ room. I just have to keep saying that.
I have a backup question because I don't know if you'll be able to answer this.
Sure.
But I saw, spoilers, if you can't say anything, I understand, but I saw Patrick Page's name in the upcoming...
Yes, that is publicly announced. That Patrick Page is involved in Hellaverse. Yes.
What was it like? I assume he's going to have a song, right? Okay, I got a backup question.
I can diplomatically say Patrick Page is a tremendous talent, and you're in for it. But you can ask a backup question because I can't say much about this.
As a theater kid myself, I know we got in, as high schoolers are cringy. Theater kids are cringy. Do you have a memory being a theater kid of what's just the stupidest, cringiest high school theater?
Oh yeah.
Record this, please.
Yes. Oh man. Okay. So I'll be honest. There's an embarrassment of riches to choose from. There was a time where I don't know if any fellow theater kids, you have ever done this, where you start just kind of like wish casting a musical between you and your friends. And there was definitely a period of time in high school where my friends and I were like convinced we were going to put on the like most amazing production ever of Les Mis, starring a bunch of high schoolers, which is of course what everyone wants to see. There was a whole lot of that, and like just my friends and I, like, singing empty chairs at empty tables in Starbucks. We were like, oh yeah, and we're gonna do it, and everyone's gonna love it. And I think that is one of the fond, cringy memories I think back on.
That's delightful, thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll have another audience question. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Kitty Monk, and since this is an 18+, my question is, would you write a song about Blitz and a horse that isn't, like, not mature, or mature?
Oh my goodness, would I write a mature song about Blitz and a horse?
I guess, like, kid-friendly.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. Blitz loves horses, but I don't think he loves them like that.
That's a Brendan question.
Yes, yeah. And I will say, like, I am very much on team give Brandon more songs. Like,
Give Brandon more songs!
that is selfish of me because it's just like, it's me being like, I want to hang out with Brandon more. But I'm very much on that team, and I have been voicing that.
Good.
He's the main character. He should.
You ought to.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, let's have another one.
So one of the great things with the Hellaverse music is the number of genres that you get to explore with it. Is there any particular genre that surprised you for being unexpectedly fun, unexpectedly difficult, unexpectedly easy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the most obvious answer here to bring things back to Clown Bitch is like K-pop was so exciting to work on a really K-pop sounding song, because I also think there are a lot of shows and projects where it's like, oh, we're trying to make a pop song, but it just sounds like a show tune song with pop instrumentation. And like really, this is genuinely one of my dreams as we, and I promise we will, release the Helluva Boss soundtrack.
Woo!
Release them! Dreams is to use, Andrew has worked a little bit in the K-pop space. He's worked with a band called Twice and a band called Hypen. Yes, and to use some of those industry contacts and get a real like K-pop group to cover Clown Bitch. And that is one of our dreams, and I'm voicing it out into the universe because I desperately want it to happen. I would say in terms of other things that have been really tough, genre-wise, There's a song in Oops called Look at This. And that song was, the whole concept of the song is, hey Sam, can you write a song that's like 3 minutes long that nothing happens in because the entire song itself is a distraction. Like everything important that's happening is happening outside of the song. And the whole idea of the song is like, how can you keep someone's information while communicating, keep someone's attention while communicating zero information? And that was a massive, massive challenge. And in order to try and just fill time, I was like, okay, we're jumping genres like crazy. So at first it starts, every song I do with Fizz has an accordion in it in some way. So at first it starts with that, you know, there's the accordion bit. Then we got like circus with polka horns. Then we've got like this weird like techno thing where Fizz starts talking about cryptocurrency. We go metal a little bit. There is the bit where Fizz speaks fake Italian by then.
Yep.
Yes, that bit is an homage. I love crooner music. That bit is very specifically an homage to a traditional crooner song in Italian called Amore Scusami. And that was just, it's like a song I've always loved and I've always wanted some form of homage there. And I was like, well, how about, you know, Crim exists, so I feel like there are Italians in flavor in Helluva Boss, even if there are not, you know, Italians from Italy. So I feel like there's, let's have Fizz do something Italian flavored, but like clearly he does not speak the language.
Do you have a favorite genre, I'm curious, to write in?
Honestly, my favorite genre to write in, I have been able to not write enough in. And it's kind of like early 2000s pop rock.
Yeah. Oh yeah!
I would love to be able to write some like Fountains of Wayne shit. Like,
Yeah.
so fun, like, you know, that kind of, or like a new metal song or something.
Yeah.
It would be, I love even though I know like it's a little goofy and it's, you know, it was, a lot of people look at it culturally as like a dark age after grunge, but the early 2000s music, I love it so much. And I would love to be writing more of that kind of, you know, like really poppy pop rock.
Woo! I love it. All right.
Woo!
Next.
Hi, I'm Maddie, and I had a question. What would you be doing if you weren't doing The Living Tombstone or Hellaverse?
Oh God. The first thing I wanted to be was an architect. But I am a very bad student, so that was very quickly not in the cards. There was a period of time where I was interested in animation, where I was like really interested in like, I was using Flash and like I thought, oh maybe that's the thing. And then I went to school to be a playwright. So for a long time, before I really started taking songwriting seriously, I was a screenwriter, and I was like pitching projects at production companies and punching up other people's screenplays and that kind of thing. Took some stuff to film festivals, and that was really my identity as a creative for a very long time. And it was only after The Living Tombstone started being a thing for me that I kind of had an identity crisis, because I described myself as a writer, and that's all I ever called myself. And I would still call myself a writer, and people would say, oh, what do you write? And then I would go, well, music. And they'd be like, so you're a songwriter. But I would never say I'm a songwriter, because it made me feel like I failed as a writer. And so, and I spent like a couple of years kind of being a songwriter in denial. Like now, when people say, what do you do? I say, oh, I'm in music, I'm a musician, or I'm a recording artist, or I'm a songwriter. But for a while, I felt kind of wounded, that I felt like I had this first dream that didn't really pan out for me. And I carried that with me for a minute.
Thank you.
So yes, I guess I would be an unhappy, not very successful screenwriter.
Awesome, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Cameron. You have a ton of different genres that you've written, especially in Hazbin, and it really helped me nerd out about music theory again. And so I had a question about a small specific detail that has been burning a hole in my brain ever since first hearing the "More Than Anything" reprise.
Ooh.
What was your reasoning to use the line, "More than anything, need you to know I love you," instead of "More than anything, you need to know I love you"?
Because it is all about, so from Vaggy's perspective here, this, I should point out, like, I should have a punch card. I cry a lot at these. And at a certain point, I should get like a free frozen yogurt or something. I'm going to try, like, whenever I talk about the relationships that these characters have, I tend to, I get a little misty. So much of this is Vaggy and Charlie have had this really significant obstacle dropped in their lives, which is Vaggy's secret has been revealed. Charlie is worried about trust, and all Vaggy has ever wanted to do is communicate to Charlie that she can rely on her. And so it comes from a place of, I need you to know. It's not about, in some ways, there is a selfishness to it because it's an I need, not a you need. But the I need is like, I will remain kind of like broken to pieces until you can acknowledge that you are my world. And that is, oh my God, here it goes. Here's the story. I'm keeping it down. I'm keeping it down. Yes. But it's in a way, it is this vulnerability of letting your partner know that it's a moment where they need something from each other, rather than putting something on them. It's saying like, I have this wound that needs to be healed, and the way that it can be healed is you acknowledging that you are my everything.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Beverly, and my question is, do you have any scrap songs? And if you do, can you sing it for me?
Yes. So in season 1, I've mentioned this once or twice at cons. In season 1, there was one scrap song. And that song was initially called When You Apologize. It eventually, we rewrote it and it became It Starts With Sorry. And that rewrite was pivotal to the musical identity of the show. Because When You Apologize was a song that was all about like, how many times can we make the audience laugh at like how pathetic Pentious is. And the whole game of the song, it was basically like a sketch almost, where Charlie is trying to help Pentious understand apologizing. And Pentious's idea of what apologizing is in his head, it's like that thing of when you tell someone that they've like crossed a boundary or something, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so stupid, I'm such a piece of shit. Like, it's that kind of thing, and that's how Pentious thinks one apologizes, is self-flagellation. And the whole game of When You Apologize was Pentious calling himself all manner of like really ridiculous names. And Charlie trying to like divert him, being like, well, it's kind of about the sincerity of the apology. And again, I apologize that this is an all ages panel. I'm going to use a little, I'm gonna say some weird stuff.
Can you sing it?
Oh God. Okay, so I don't fully remember it start to back. I will say the line it started with, it also sort of ate a bit of the previous scene. Charlie says in the previous scene, or actually I think it got moved to earlier in the episode, the first step to being a better person is admitting you were wrong. She says that to Pentious when she's prompting him to apologize to Alistair for ripping his coat. And so it started with Charlie going, you know, the first step to being a better person is admitting you were wrong. And Pentious, at the time, we didn't know what voice Brightman was going to do. And it's Alex, like he does all manner of things. So it was the demo of this, I'm doing this very strange kind of goblin voice that's also like a little bit Gonzo from the Muppets. So it's, you know, is admitting you were wrong, and Pentious goes, I was wrong, and like that was the voice I did. She goes, say sorry to the ones you hurt, and if you mean it, you can move on. And then he goes, but I'm a sack of shit. Again, it was just about like how many awful things can he call himself. He was like, again, sorry, children, but I'm a sack of shit, a dog turd in the road. It was like a whole thing. Like he's calling himself all these awful things, and she's like, close, not really. That's not actually what we're trying to do here. And when we delivered that, it was like, this is really funny, but it's not right for this scene, because the goal for this scene isn't to make Pentious a joke. The goal for this scene is to be really, really sincere. And that was when Andrew and I realized something pivotal to the way we would continue to write Hazbin Hotel, which is, even though it is a comedy musical, the goal of the music is to underline the sincerity, not to underline the comedy. And so much of why Pentious has become my favorite character. So much of why we care about these characters so much is the sincerity that they display through their singing. And it really follows the musical rule of like, when you're feeling too much to speak, you sing. And staying true to that for what became It Starts With Sorry. It Starts With Sorry is still a funny song, but it's not funny because Pentious is saying something ridiculous. It's funny because he's so earnest. And, you know, I've seen a couple screenings of the episodes, and there's always a little chuckle at the It Starts With Sorry, and his big teary eyes go blink, blink. And we're laughing not because we're laughing at Pentious. We're laughing because we know him now. And I think that is really like the core of the show, is the songs are our opportunity to really know these people.
Sir Pentious is such a theater kid.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, what's your favorite part of Hell's Greatest Dad song?
Ooh, you know, we did, Hell's Greatest Dad is, in season 1, the first instance of us getting a session musician to work on the soundtrack. And that was, we knew early on that because this is some kind of like dueling energy song involving Lucifer, that we would need to in some way reference The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yep.
And you know, it's a little bit anything you could do, I could do better. And to do that, we were like, oh, you know, he needs to try and fiddle battle Alistair. And so we brought in a session fiddler. So that, I mean, for me, like that, I love that moment where Lucifer, it's like Lucifer is so angry. And you see his like big upside down, you know, his big upside down kind of C frown as he's fiddling. It's almost like Lucifer gets so angry he can't speak or sing. And so it's just, you fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. I love that beat in the song.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Hi, I have a question. So I think a lot of people have tried to like write songs at some point in time, and just to realize, wait, this is actually really hard. So what advice would you have for people that like want to write songs and like, you know, participate in music, but don't necessarily have like a extensive background of training in that?
So I would say the thing that I see most get in people's way with songwriting is not an inability to write a song. It's an inability to write a bad song. Because I think you need to allow yourself the grace to write something crappy. That is so, so important. Every great song starts as a bad song. And I think there are so many people that are because they haven't seen the songwriting process and don't really have a clear sense of how the sausage is made, are expecting, as they write something, for it to be perfect off the bat and for it to feel like something they could hear on the radio. And that's really just never how it is. And I think one of the things that was reinforced to me actually when I was in school to be a playwright, and I've applied to music, is when you're editing, you're not writing, and when you're writing, you're not editing. And so one of the things that Andrew and I try to do is not second guess our lines as we're writing them. Once we have written the bad song, then we go back and make it the good song. And I think there are a lot of people who are interested in music, but if your exposure to music is just through finished songs, you keep stopping yourself before you actually finish the bad thing that can turn into the good thing. And you need to allow yourself the grace to make something that's sloppy before you can refine it and make it good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Hello. Hi. I have a question about Clown Bitch.
Yeah.
I was wondering, because I know you mentioned K-pop. I was wondering if there were any specific inspirations behind that, because, and I don't know if anyone would agree, to my ears, it sounds like it would live perfectly on Dorian Electra's last album, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to get that out of my head since I first heard it.
So the thing about the song that I think is its most easily identifiably K-popiest trait is the group chorus la 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 la, for a couple reasons. First of all, like the group chorus component of that is big. The fact that the refrain is a musical passage rather than a lyric is very on brand within the genre. There's also the fact that there is the kind of detuned final note, that la, which is kind of lives between pitches. And these are all, I'm trying to remember the name of, there's a K-pop song that to me feels like the iconic example of this.
Who's it by?
Oh, I want to say it's Red Velvet, but it's I would have to start scrolling my Spotify and like listen. I was like, oh, it's this one. But
Paint the Town?
what?
Is it Paint the Town?
It's not Paint the Town.
Damn.
But that, I mean, that just even that as like a baseline refrain was very much part of like trying to stick in the genre. There's also the fact that this is something that is almost never done with musical theater, that is done constantly with pop music, which is having a double word rhyme where the second word stays the same. Because, like if you are used to musical theater music, you might listen to the chorus of Clown Bitch and go, oh, they're rhyming bitch with bitch. But we're not. We're rhyming clown bitch with frown bitch with crown bitch. Like it's the sort of the compound rhyme where, and I'm sorry I'm saying bitch so much, where bitch kind of becomes the second syllable of a two-syllable word that you're rhyming into. And that is something that is done ubiquitously in pop music, but really you don't see a lot of in musical theater.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering what your approach is for finding a balance between a song that is very upbeat and fun to listen to while still addressing like very serious material inside of it. Like, I was very impressed listening to Poison to be like, wow, this is an absolute bop. Removed from its context, this could be a party song. It's fun, it's sexy, but like within the context of the show and in the lyrics, it's still about like the emotional implications of like exploitation within sex work, which is like a really hard thing to do respectfully, but I feel like it really captured both of being a great fun song that also had these really heavy emotional beats.
I love talking about this. So Poison was in terms of season one, I will say people have also had a very personal reaction to More Than Anything in a way that has made me realize that song was more personal to me than I even realized at the time when I was writing it. But Poison and Loser Baby really as a pair were a pair of very personal songs to me. I'm a sexual assault survivor myself. And that was, talking about something as serious as Angel's self-blame for, and I would say this isn't even necessarily restricted to assault, but like the self-blame for abuse. And how Angel's, at that point in the story, Angel's coping mechanism is escape, and it's dissociation. And when Angel is in that state of escape and dissociation, it's having the music be that kind of danceable style. It's almost there's a component of that that is very much like, there can be a tendency to romanticize what a mess you are. And I think that is part of the creative DNA of that. And I also think part of it is Angel's mind going elsewhere while this is happening. I mean, the song does explicitly talk about dissociating. And in part of reflecting that dissociation is that disconnect between the heaviness of the lyrics and the poppiness of the song that they're contained in. And having that sort of reflect Angel's dissociation was a big part of the process of writing Poison. And I can talk you through the process of it a little bit too. We started Poison with the music because we knew in terms of what the story and what the script called for. The script called for something that would be an up-tempo look at something that is Angel's life that Angel doesn't realize maybe is as frightening as it is. And so from there, we were thinking about like what is the right sort of style of pop for this. We settled on what to me feels, I feel like Poison feels like a sort of pop that is coming more in vogue now, which is sort of like an 80s throwback pop that you see a lot from like The Weeknd and Dua Lipa. I'm sorry I'm so rambly by the way. On the topic of The Weeknd, I actually think one of the great things that The Weeknd does as an artist is marry this idea of that 80s danceable pop with a sense of dread. And that's something that I really appreciate about that album, After Hours, that he released. And that was something, we tried to have this sense of unease with just kind of a relentless bouncy beat. And then in terms of, in fairness, I as I've already said, like I'm a survivor myself, so we weren't in a situation where it was like, oh, like who can we consult about this, because it was for me already coming from a kind of personal place. And I don't know, I mean, I think it's something that as I wrote, the lyrics really came second after the vamp. It was just, I was spending a lot of time thinking about the kind of things I would say to myself as like, why did I get myself in this situation? Like it was always like looking at the universe as a really cruel place and me saying, well, the only thing I had control over was me. So how could I do that to myself? Because I know the world is like this, and I know the world is bad. And that was a really big, I feel like I'm kind of drifting all over the place here, but I could talk about Poison for a very, very long time.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a great answer. I loved hearing all of your
Thank you.
tangents.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for being a very
Yeah. They don't listen to your words. Guys, we have 5 more minutes left, so that's probably about 3 people, maybe 4. So those in the back of the line, we're probably not going to get to you, but Sam will be at his table.
I will be.
So after this panel, go see him at his table and ask your questions, please.
Yes.
But let's go ahead and have your question, please.
Hi, I'm Max. I was just wondering what the songwriting process was like and what your favorite part of it was.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the songwriting process, it almost feels like being at summer camp, in that like it is a highly concentrated period of time. So for season 1, all 16 songs we wrote in about 10 weeks.
What?
Yeah. And in order to do that, Andrew and I were like spending all of our time together. And so there is that kind of fun summer campy element of it, where it's like, oh boy, like I'm hanging out with my friend and we're making art and arts and crafts. And
Yes.
that element of it is so fun. And I would say, you know, really there isn't a part of this process that I don't love. I love that component, but I also really, really adore working with the actors. The cast are such, first of all, they're lovely people, but something that really makes this show so wonderful to write for is the sense of play. And there's a sense of play with Andrew and I when we're writing, but there's also such a sense of play in the voice booth when we're directing. And I mean, the number of ad-libs that make it into songs even, that never happens, that ad-libs make it into songs, but it so is the case with this show. I mean, the iconic example of this in season 1 is guitar solo "Fuck Yeah." It's in the demo. It's just kind of like a few measures of just Jack Black sounds, like kind of like it's that kind of thing. And Alex's idea that like Adam is the kind of like dumb guy where he's going to announce his instrument just in case you can't tell he's doing mouth guitar. It was just such a perfect moment, and moments like that really are some of my favorite parts of this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So my introduction to your work was even before I had watched Hazbin. One of the bands that I listened to, Late Nine, they covered your song Poison. And so I was, and they did it in their style, which is like a Pierce the Veil post-hardcore kind of style. And I'm curious, are there any of your songs that you would love to hear covered by an artist in their style?
Very much. So I mean, I did mention, I know Convich is already like a K-poppy song, and I would love to hear a K-pop band actually like really take it on. But I think something else that I daydream about this stuff with the cast and the crew all the time. I had lunch with Morgana the other day, and I was talking about the idea of getting like a ska act to do the IMP theme. Like,
yes!
You know, I love that stuff, and although, and I've said this to a couple people who've been at the table, like I try not to, listen to a bunch of fan music, in part because I don't want that inspiration to color my writing process. But I have heard some of the like genre bent covers, and I really I love those. I heard, oh God, there have been a couple like cool covers of "You Will Be Okay" from Helluva Boss. I even I liked it enough that I did one myself. I released an EP a while back where I did kind of like a more grungy cover of "You Will Be Okay." That was very fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm so all about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do have 2 questions, if that's okay. They should take.
Sure. I mean, I think we can go a little long.
Yeah, if our room is okay.
Is our room okay?
Yeah.
There are 6 questions.
We're getting shrugs. All right. Well, let's just do a few more questions.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
My first question is, who in season 1 didn't get a song that you wish got a song, and what would that song be about?
Okay, so in the context of the plot of season 1, where else would I have inserted a song into the story? I would have inserted a song in episode 2 when we first go to V Tower. I would have had a musical introduction of the V's as a trio.
Yes!
And then my other song is, did you intend to accidentally make it sound like the backing beat of Devil Went Down to Georgia during that fiddling part as well, or was that not intentional?
I mean, there was definitely a part of Devil Went Down to Georgia in there, for sure. And I saw a lot of people after Hell's Greatest Dad came out say, oh, it sounds like this electro swing song or that electro swing song. To which I have to say, like, a lot of electro swing songs sound quite similar to each other. That is kind of a hallmark of the genre.
Yeah, I just noticed that like bum bum ba was like kind of like mix of like Devil Went Down to Georgia, and also kind of a little bit Pink Elephants from Dumbo.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great catch.
Yeah, I just noticed that, and I was like, I can't unhear that now.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Willow. I was wondering, I know you have a lot of the demos for mostly Helluva Boss out on Spotify. You have a beautiful, lovely voice. I enjoy hearing them very often. Is there a particular demo that you're the most proud of your voice or that you had the most fun doing?
Yes. I have said bitch too many times. Sorry. It is, I will say, like, for the demo of that song, you know the one. Just gonna start being like, that one. Clown that. for the demo of that one, a big part of it was now realizing that like people, I was putting the demos up at first just to be like, hey, here's how the sausage is made. But I realized that there were so many people who were just recreationally listening to them. And I was like, oh, I really gotta like start really singing these. Because normally what you're hearing is just kind of a reference that's there for the actors. And I just think it's kind of cool to see how the sausage is made, to upload, to see what the actors get before they go in and perform. But for that song, you know the one. That was the first time that in making the demo, I was thinking like, oh, people are gonna be recreationally listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
And so I need to like actually kind of perform it rather than just give a kind of idea to the actor of like, here's what you're gonna be doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we probably can take just one more question.
Hi, my name is Ida, and I was wondering if there was any time that you felt like you just couldn't go on.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, to end this on a very vulnerable note, I guess, a couple of weeks after Hazbin came out, I had all these people reaching out, being like, oh my God, look at the show's doing so good. Oh, you must be over the moon. And honestly, like, I was kind of at my mentally lowest point right after the show came out. And a big part of that was this sort of attention that is part of this like kind of online fandom thing. I just like, I wasn't used to it. And I was having a really hard time coping with the idea that like, even though like people were obviously largely saying very positive things, there is something kind of brain breaking about seeing a lot of people talk about you who don't know you. And I'm a person who like, just with my history and mental things going on and trauma and whatnot, I'm such a people pleaser, and part of being a people pleaser is having this idea that you are in control of what other people can think about you, and like using your actions and that kind of people pleasing behavior to like ensure people like you. And then all of a sudden, there were like hundreds of thousands of people talking about me as though I was almost like a fictional character, that I had no control over how they saw me, whether it was positive or not. And that like was incredibly bad for my mental health. And there was, I saw a clip of Bo Burnham at the 92nd Street Y, where he talked about having to deal with that as a young person when he first got really big online. And I found it really, really helpful. He talked about having to teach yourself how to shut that out, because the moment you start believing that they're really talking about you, you will believe anything they say. And I think the phrase he used that I found really affecting, which is, if you believe the good things, you'll believe the bad things. And I realized that like, I was having this strange identity crisis where I saw all these people talking about me, and I was like, but we don't know each other. You know, it was this weird thing of like, I'm not in control of what you feel about me, even if it's a good thing. And I had to kind of really reassess and adjust my relationship to the internet, to social media. I mean, like now, like I have learned how to cope with that, but all of a sudden, to see it so much, so fast, I had a really hard couple weeks until I learned to kind of reset myself and take my anxiety back down and say like, this is not affecting me. This is, you know, like I had that impulse of like, oh, I'm a people pleaser, and now I need to please millions of people. And that was, it just filled me with dread, really. And I had to kind of readjust my relationship to the feedback from that. And I will say, I'm doing way better now. Like I'm
Yay!
But it forced this short period of growth after the show came out, where I had to like really change how I internalize this stuff. And I had a long conversation with Viv about it too, because I know like no one has been through that more than she has. And
Yeah.
we went to see We went to see Christina in a musical. Christina was in a musical called Mystic Pizza. We went to go see Mystic Pizza, and I drove us back because it was kind of like an hour out of LA. And I was just on the drive, I was like, how do you deal with it? And she kind of talked me through exactly what I just started telling you about. And it was really, really helpful to see it through her eyes and to understand that, like, I did not need to tether myself to all of this feedback. Because that's the thing about being a people pleaser. Like, the moment anyone's giving you feedback of any kind, you're like, how do I ace this? How do I get brownie points? Where's my gold star? So I think that was incredibly helpful. And thank you for a really poignant question that I think affects so many people who create content that, like, blows up on the internet and is such a thing to deal with. That I've seen Yoav from The Living Tombstone, I've seen him deal with that tremendously as well. And it really is, it's so widespread among online creators and rarely talked about.
Wonderful. Well, guys, as we wrap this up, I really wanted to ask a favor of our ASL interpreter because I can see them behind me and I want to know what clown bench looks like. All right.
Nice.
Wonderful. All right, guys. Help me in thanking Sam and doing this incredible.
Thank you so much.